Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 728, Let Us Play Yesterday. Now, this is another Sioux poem, scholars seem to believe. In many ways, we're back to poem 299. Do you guys remember this one? Your riches taught me poverty. Myself a millionaire in little wealth as girls could boast, till broad as Buenos Aires. You drifted your dominions, a different Peru, and I esteemed all poverty for life's estate with you. Of mines, I little know myself, but just the names of gems, the colors of the commonest and scarce of diadems. So much that did I meet the queen, her glory I should know. But this must be a different wealth to miss it, beggars. So I'm sure 'tis India all day to those who look on you, without a stent, without a blame. Might I but be the Jew, I'm sure it is a Calcutta. Beyond my power to dim, to have a smile for mine each day, how better than a gem? At least it solaces to know that there exists a gold, although I prove it just in time its distance to behold. 'Tis far, far treasure to surmise, and estimate the pearl that slipped my single fingers through. Well, just a girl at school. You will remember as well that in 727, the poem that just preceded, this idea of precious to me is in fact the very Sioux that we're speaking of. Now, our assumptions, and that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net. Down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily is our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments. We mentioned Sue, close dear friend, some say lover of Emily, who will go on to marry Emily's brother Austin, and of course there's tension all the way through that relationship. It's fraught. Emily will, as well, have already produced 727 poems that we've worked through, and I'm hopeful that you've worked through those with me. As we just said, 299 and 727 both are powerful statements. And you will remind yourself, I hope, that Emily often speaks of being in what? Exile, prison, destitution, a wilderness. Here is another poem, though, about the power of love's awakening. This is how she says it. Let us play yesterday. I, the girl at school, you and eternity, the untold tale. Easing my famine at my lexicon, logarithm had I for drink, 'twas a dry wine. Somewhat different must be, dreams tend to sleep, cunning reds of morning make the blind leap. Still at the egg life chafing the shell, when you troubled the eclipse and the bird fell. Manacles be dim, they say, to the new free liberty commoner never could to me. 'Twas my last gratitude when I slept at night. 'Twas the first miracle let in with light. Can the lark resume the shell easier for the sky? Wouldn't bonds hurt more than yesterday? Wouldn't dungeons sore or great on the man free just long enough to taste, then doomed new? God of the manacle as of the free, take not my liberty away from me. Now, there is much that can be, I think, interpretively said about this poem, but the problem, of course, is the us. Who is the us? If Emily is in fact speaking to her pal Sue, well, then that's obviously going to color to some degree what it is she has to say. However, let's make sure that we understand that Emily is playing within that tradition, that evolutionary tradition, that argues that at each new phase, all beings, species, transcend and include, move out of that stage into another stage, and through the process will hold on to some of the early stages, but will always move on. Here we'll have the bird coming out of her shell, and so it's beautiful to think of Emily as the bird. She's identified herself as such. I want to begin, though, with the word play. As we've said so many times, she uses this word in 74 of her poems. We will have seen it over and over again. I think Emily is constantly playing with language, and now she'll imagine or play what yesterday was like. First there's her, I, the girl at school. Of course, this takes us back to our study of 299. And then she says, you and eternity, the untold tale. We can't read something like this and not think of Canterbury Tales, Chaucer's classic. The idea is, I met you, she says, in my past, easing my famine. What a brilliant way to say what true friendships are. At my lexicon, one scholar's pointed out that as a youth, Emily spent a lot of time reading her dictionary. Christine Miller has pointed this out. The dictionary, or the lexicon that Emily loved to study, was the 1844 reprint of Webster's 1841 dictionary. Emily was a great lover of language. She says in a letter 261 to Higginson of April 1862, "For several years my lexicon was my only companion." She read the dictionary, and she says about that reading logarithm, she says, "Had I for drink, 'twas a dry wine." In other words, before I met you, she says, all I knew was the dictionary. Somewhat different must be. Dreams tent the sleep. Cunning reds. Some have pointed out the possible here meaning of reds of sexuality. Reds of morning make the blind leap. And immediately we think about our Plato and our study of Republic, and especially Republic Book 7, and the cave allegory coming out of the darkness of the light, out of the darkness of the cave into the light of the sun. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net if you want to run that to ground. And then she uses her word still. We saw this word before in 7:27, she still shall be. 95 of her poems, she uses this word still. I think I said to you guys a few times that I think T.S. Eliot learned how to use the word still from his study of Emily Dickinson. What is it that he says in his Coker? We must be still and still moving into another intensity. Right? Still at the egg life. What a brilliant, before the birds, what a brilliant way to say it. Chafing the shell, you want to break free. When you troubled the eclipse, troubled here like broke, right, broke out, and the bird fell. The imagery here is powerful. Right? We've seen this. I fell down and down, she says. Funeral in the mind. Manacles be dim, the things that hold. They say. Now, of course, this they say will immediately take us back to our study of 721. To the new free liberty, commoner never could to me. Now, in other words, there was something majestically freeing, she says, about this relationship. 'Twas my last gratitude when I slept at night. 'Twas the first miracle let in with light. It's a brilliant tribute poem, isn't it? Now she'll ask some rhetorical questions. Can the lark resume the shell? Once the bird is free, can it go back? There is no transcending and regressing. There's only transcending and including, right? Can the lark resume the shell? Easier for the sky. And of course we go from the life, the egg life, to now the emancipated life. You can't go back. Easier for the sky. Wouldn't bonds hurt more than yesterday? Of course, it's a rhetorical, obvious question. You can't go back in the shell once the shell is broken. Wouldn't dungeons soar great? One scholar has pointed out that Emily knew Byron's Prisoner of Chillon, where it is said of the character that he did not know liberty when it came and asked to go back to jail. It's a brilliant, I think, suggestion that dungeons soar great on the man free. Dungeons are way worse or prisons, if you ever escape and then have to go back. Just, I think, is the key word of the poem, long enough to taste. She's back to tasting of freedom. Then, doomed, new. And again, as I said to you guys, I think Emily teaches us that the new is the new. The NEW is the KNEW. Everything is cyclical. And yet there's somehow a transformation as well that happens. And then she goes to God. God of the manacle is of the free. Take not my liberty away from me. The poem ending not with an exclamation point, but with a dash. And yet, I think the point that she's making is that all learning is a transcending and an including, and there is no going back. At 2b, well, obviously we wonder who the us of the poem is. Is it Sue? Is it someone else? At 3a, well, all of the Sue poems come to mind. Again, Farr, the art scholar, has pointed out 94 of these. Plato's Republic 7 I've mentioned as well. And there's so many others. I mean, think about how this poem is in many ways a rereading and a recreating of Milton's Paradise Lost. We've given full lectures of all of Paradise Lost at learnstrong.net. Finally, at 3b, what was your previous egg life like? And I guess I could ask it even in relationship to this poem. By the way, if you're in the Johnson edition, you have just passed the middle page of that volume, and we're on the downhill now. Thank you.